Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning this watch. Today we are discussing a 2023 model year limited edition of 50 pieces in stainless steel from Chronoswiss of Lucerne, Switzerland. This is the Open Gear Resec Tiger Edition. That's right, the Tiger Edition, with a tiger-colored dial, or at least a tiger tone-inspired dial. It also draws on Chronoswiss's unique design history dating back to the GR Long era in the 80s, as well as its heritage of creating retrogrades and regulator dials. So that is a lot to unpack. The Open Gear Resec Tiger is big, but not huge, at 44 millimeters in diameter, 13.8 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 53.4 millimeters with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll throw the watch on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. And you can see, like I said, big but not huge. It's really not as thick as you think. At under 14 millimeters with a sloped case flank, it will fit underneath some cuffs. That said, it's quite broad, and that's easily the largest dimension. It's that 53.4 millimeter lug-to-lug. So I would say realistically, I probably have the smallest wrist that can wear this watch, and the further you get away, the more you see of my arm and my hand, the more it fits. But you can see we're right out to the edge of what's acceptable. The lugs are not over, but they are right on the periphery of my edge. If your wrist is any smaller, you're going to want to look for a smaller watch. Taking a quick look at the hardware and the software, we've got a full clasp. You can see it is steel, Chronoswiss branded. It's got a combination of media blast and polish. It's a single fold friction fit with a radial spring that, a little bit like a Patek clasp, helps to keep it more secure than a typical friction fit clasp. And one thing I like, a lot of brands get this wrong, but when you use screws and bars to fix a strap to a case, that's a very secure arrangement, and I love to see it because it costs a bit more, but it gives you more confidence and security. But sometimes they use a spring bar to attach the clasp to the strap, which just creates another weak link in the chain. Here you have screws and bars on both sides for utmost security. The strap, I like to call this the hardware and the software. This is the hardware, this is the software. It's made of Codura, which is a synthetic material very similar to Alcantara. There's textile on top, there's Codura suede-like lining on the bottom, and it is a super tough strap that's very resilient against tearing, wearing, aging. It can be cleaned, and it's also exceptionally resistant to water and moisture. So this watch, which you can see features a strap in outstanding condition, and it is Chronoswiss correct, on a watch that is 100 meters water resistant with full loom, a steel case, and automatic winding, you start to realize that between the strap and the spec of the watch, this is actually less an elaborate dress watch and more of an aggressive all-arounder verging on a sports watch. So taking a look at the extent of the loom on the dial, it's actually quite surprising. There is no shortage, and you can see how the indices are all three-dimensional luminescent blocks. They're not painted details, they're not transferred lacquer. You could see that they are actually three-dimensional structures, little polymer chunks that give you three-dimensional loom on the dial. Now the dial is multi-layered. The base is actually lathe guilloche, which I love to see, and you can see the details, the closer you get to the center, they become more and more intricate. That's usually the hard part to achieve with stamped guilloche. So you could see this type of reductive cut guilloche or engine-turned guilloche is preferable. A process called CVD, or chemical vapor deposition, is used to apply this tiger-like color. And so CVD is often used to apply very bright and vivid colors. PVD doesn't always give you that flexibility, and PVD is a line-of-sight technology. That means you can't always evenly coat complex surfaces, whereas CVD is a gas that simply envelops any surface it's designed to coat. So you get this lovely lathe guilloche with CVD, and then on top of that you have the superstructure comprising the individual numbering plate out of 50, the name plate, the scale for the retrograde seconds, which jumps every 30 seconds. I like that. It's twice as much jumping. And then you can see that there is a gear-driven superstructure on top of the ETA base that acts as the motion works here, and you can see how it drives the hands along, and it has its own separate bridges. You can also see that there's excellent depth to this dial. It's a very three-dimensional dial. Regulator, meaning it has a separate hour, minute, and seconds display. And because it is an ETA 2892A2 top grade automatic base, you do get the hacking seconds function, so you can set it precisely to a reference time. Turn it all over. I am always surprised by the 100-meter water resistance of these, and you can see that the shape is probably the element of the watch that has the most fidelity to GR Lang's original Chronoswiss watches, with the unbranded onion-style crown, the vertical satination on the case band, these Pastille-style lugs with screws and bars, and then the coined bezel and case back. Then we get to the movement itself, and you know this is top grade. It's not advertised as a chronometer, so being that it has those splayed spokes on the balance, let me show you what I mean. That is just a straight spoke. If it's a base or elaborate grade, then it would just be a straight spoke. That flare as it approaches the rim means it's one of the top 2 grades, which is something I always love to see. So top grade balance and hairspring. And then 4 hertz beat rate, bidirectional winding, 42-hour power reserve, 21 joules for the base caliber, and then 12 more for the Chronoswiss module that sits on top. And it is a reliable, accurate, and tough tractor movement with a spectacular dial side animated display of the regulator genre, but far more dynamic than any standard regulator and with a lot more color and personality. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.